Eternal God, we pray that you will bless this meeting. We ask that all may feel your presence during this meeting because you are with us wherever we go. We pray that this meeting focuses upon your plans for our communities as a whole. Let all members' words and actions in this meeting be valuable, just and fair. God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our borough. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. And guide us to be the leaders that your people need. Help us to see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with the reverence that your creation deserves. And finally, Father, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of the human person. And we ask this as people created in your image, confident in your goodness and love. Amen. Thank you.
I'll have to leave the room on the council tax reduction scheme item. Pardon? Item number... I'll need to leave the room.
This is about the rental business, you don't need to leave.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Please can I declare interest, a pecuniary interest in item 14 as well? Yes, I am, Mr Mayor. No. Right, thank you. Cancel that now.
On item 14, that if you are a landlord with a tenant who may be claiming, there is no prejudicial interest. I just want to be really clear, because in the past we have had members leave the chamber, so it will be helpful for that.
Yes, and I've been one of them.
Yeah, because it affected so many members in the past, there's been, Catherine, what's the exact wording?
Dispensation. It's a general dispensation.
A general dispensation
Under the Code of Conduct.
under the Code of Conduct has been passed by this council. So previously, half a dozen people would leave. So that is now in play.
Right, agenda item 2, confirmation of minutes. I'd like to propose that the minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of September be confirmed as a correct record.
I am happy to second those.
Does anyone wish to speak on this item? We will now take the vote then. All in favour? That's unanimous. Agenda item 3, Mayor's announcements. Well, at this happy time of year, I'd be looking forward to seeing you all, or most of you anyway, next Tuesday and Wednesday. So let's hope that goes well and you don't forget. Can I remind you also for your diary that the civic service is on the 21st of December. That's in Ray Green Church, which will be extremely pretty and Christmasly decorated. And it's 9 lessons and 9 cows, which is a particularly nice service to go to at Christmas. I believe it starts at 6:30 and there will be refreshments afterwards. Also for your diaries, on the 24th of Jan, there will be a coffee morning in the Mayor's house. I'm sorry, it's in Ray Green again. But the plus is it will be fresh coffee and the biscuits will be good. So if you feel you can come to a charity coffee morning in Ray Green, that's the 24th of January. And lastly today, I just want to say for the record that my deputy here, who is the property appeal organiser for St Anne's, raised £22,000 for St Anne's coming up to November, and husband Paul raised 17,500 for Lytham. This is a fantastic amount of money received from Lytham.
Thank you. Can I thank those councillors who sat on my table and helped? Thank you very much.
I have to say, this is a wonderful social job to do because I meet more friends when I'm sitting in booths selling poppers. Agenda item 4. Chief Executive, do you have any communications to report?
None this evening, thank you, Chair.
Agenda item 5. One question has been received from the member of the public. The question will be read out by Alan Oldfield on behalf of Mr Rigby.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Rigby's question is, how do you fulfil your statutory duty regarding public health to all members of the general public in the Fylde Borough when exposed to health risks?
Councillor Threlford, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'll answer Mr Rigby's question, and I'd like to thank you for raising the matter of aircraft noise originating from BAE Systems in Wharton. We fully appreciate the impact of military jet aircraft noise that can have have on residents living nearby. Over the past number of years, our environmental health officers have engaged with you on this issue, offering advice and support. Following further discussion with the Council's Service Director of Communities, I can confirm the following. The legal position. Under Section 79, Item 6 of the Environmental Protection Act of 1990, noise from aircraft, civil or military, is specifically excluded from the statutory nuisance regime. This is because aviation noise is governed by separate aviation and defence legislation. Military aviation noise is further exempt under the Civil Aviation Act of 1982 and related defence laws. Consequently, Fylde Council has no jurisdiction or environmental powers in this area. Other legislation is the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 cannot be applied to address community noise. This act is designed for workplace safety and is jointly enforced by Fylde Council and the Health and Safety Executive. Neither body can use it to regulate aircraft noise affecting the wider community. In monitoring, the Council has no statutory responsibility to monitor aircraft noise. Any such action would fall outside our legal remit and, even if undertaken, could not lead to enforcement. In summary, Fylde Council has no legal authority over noise generated by the Typhoon aircraft at BAE Wharton. While BAE Systems seek to manage flight operations to minimise environmental impact, options for mitigating military jet noise are inherently limited, although we remain committed to supporting residents' health and well-being. This is an area where the Council cannot intervene. We acknowledge your previous formal complaint, but regrettably, the Council's position remains unchanged. I thank you again for your question, but as I've just explained, Fylde Council is not in a position to undertake any action. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Threlford. Agenda item 6, questions from members of the Council. There are no questions on this occasion. Agenda item 7. I invite Councillor Peter Collins to introduce the notice of motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, members of the Council. I bring this motion tonight, and at the outset I want to be absolutely clear. There's work that needs to be started within weeks, not months. Anything slower will be too little too late. Because what we are facing with Morgan, Morecambe and Morvannon are schemes on an unprecedented scale that will impact Fylde for decades to come. And what we are trying to achieve is simple. A faster, smarter and £1.5 billion cheaper way of delivering these energy connections, avoiding a tsunami of needless trenches and substations using Hill House Technology Enterprise Zone, Stanner, Heysham Ring. A route now recognised by Ofgem in what they call Stanner 2 and openly acknowledged by Ørsted as having major advantages. Right now, Morgan and Morecambe isn't approved. Morecambe has no committed finance. Penwitham requires Greenbelt acquisition, and yet consumers are facing an avoidable £1.5 billion burden added straight to bills during a cost of living crisis. Meanwhile, Fylde gains almost nothing, whether the scheme is approved or refused. That is why we need a scrutiny review, but only if it is fast. If scrutiny follows its current timetable, we will repeat exactly what the COVID inquiry criticised across government. Too little, too late. And we must also tie M&M to Morvannon and keep Morvannon tied to the future Isle of Man interconnector scheme. These NSIPs are linked and our response must be linked also. We face 3 urgent tasks: respond to the Morvannon application, mobilise the regulator Ofgem, and also NESO, National Grid, and hold them to their statutory duties, and seize wider opportunities and avoid years of avoidable surface disruption from St Anne's Dunes to Clifton's open countryside. We already have a small opening. Ofgem's recognition of Stanner 2. We must widen that crack now. And courtesy of our Lancashire colleague, County Councillor Peter Buckley, the developers themselves told the BBC they are committed to minimising impact. Very well, let's meet them. Let them show us how digging 30 kilometres of trenches inland minimises impact when a fully viable alternative exists. This requires urgent coordination across parish councils, Fylde and Wyre councils, Lancashire County councils, MPs, select committees and government. But we must engage rapidly at every level. Because we are approaching local government reorganisation, soon Fylde may no longer exist. This is our closing window to protect our communities, our economy and our landscape. Our duty, our first duty as councillors, is to defend Fylde's interests while we still can. And I say it's not too late. We need to protect Fylde. We need to act now. Please support this motion to ensure we respond quickly, intelligently and strategically before the opportunity and our authority disappears. Thank you. I do have a seconder, Mr. Mayor.
Who is going to...
Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gardner.
Councillor Gardner, would you like to second this motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very pleased to second this motion, and I want to stress one central point. Time is really a critical factor. The Morgan, Morecambe and Morvannon schemes are not routine planning matters. They are nationally significant projects that will affect the future character of Fylde for decades. Because of that, I believe we cannot afford a slow response. We need to move in weeks, not months. Hence why this motion is so important. If we wait for the usual timetable, we risk repeating the same too little, too late approach highlighted so starkly in the COVID inquiry. We cannot let that happen in Fylde. We have a genuine opportunity. Ofgem has already acknowledged the potential of Stanner as a connection point, and Ørsted, the company behind Morvannon, recognises the advantage of using the existing infrastructure at Hill House. There exists a better faster, cheaper route. And with local government reorganisation fast approaching, this may be our last chance as a borough council to press that case. Fylde residents rely on us to protect Fylde, its communities, its businesses, its environment from unnecessary chaos and destruction and unnecessary costs. Supporting this motion does exactly that. So I second it wholeheartedly. It isn't too late. We really need now to try and protect Fylde. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on this item? Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to propose an amendment. It is a helpful amendment. It's certainly not a wrecking amendment. And the amendment is simply to alter the very first sentence of the notice motion that has been put forward to say that the Scrutiny Chairs panel be asked to consider commissioning the Internal Affairs Scrutiny Committee to conduct an in-depth review of the Council's handling and so on. So all the suggested amendment is to insert the words that the Scrutiny Chairs panel be asked to consider commissioning the Internal Affairs Scrutiny Committee and no more than that. And the reason for the amendment, Mr Mayor, is to allow the established scrutiny procedure to take place whereby a request can be made by any councillor for an item on scrutiny. It can be considered by the Chairs panel in terms of its priority, and we've heard of that this evening, and importantly on the scope of the work that is requested. And the Chairs panel will be meeting soon, so it's important to stress that this is not adding delay to the procedure. Because, as drafted, the request for an in-depth review would take so long that those opportunities being spoken of will be missed in terms of further engagement with regulators on the M&M wind farm application and on the readiness for the Moor Vannin wind farm application. It risks paralysing the work already underway because of the time needed by officers to undertake this very detailed work. That is not to say that the request lacks merit. It simply needs some proper deliberation and focus, as well as a dose of realism. I have confidence in the Chairs panel that they will give proper consideration to this request. And therefore, I move the amendment, Mr Mayor, and have a seconder in Councillor Redcliffe.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to second the amendment and to simply reinforce the points that Councillor Buckley has just made in terms of due diligence, in terms of the due process involved, involving the Scrutiny Chairs panel. It's the appropriate body and it's the appropriate route to take at this present moment in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Evans.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. This is a massive project which has long-term and far-reaching implications for our residents, especially in rural Fylde. And so I'd like to take this opportunity, as well as supporting the amendment, to just pay thanks at the end of the Planning Inspectorate's long inspection and review of this application, just to take a second to thank our Head of Planning and also John Copestake for the invaluable work that they've put in. Not just our officials, but also the local residents groups at FACS and the local parish council and town council group, TASK, which have done a vast amount of work, raised funds and put money into doing their own research and also getting their own professionals to represent our residents at these planning applications. With regard to the amendment, I wholeheartedly support what the leader is saying in terms of we need to have a very narrow look at what we are able to impact on going forward. There'll always be time in the future to look back at what we could have done differently, but we are where we are. But I do think it needs to be actioned in a timely manner, and I think it needs to be laser focused, and I think it is very important that we do meet either side of Christmas and find some way of narrowing down the field of this discussion so that we can make a big impact on the Ofgem report and also NISO reports, and so I would like to support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evan. Does anyone else want to speak on this issue, this amendment? Councillor Collins.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I brought the original motion, I did want to speak to one of the officers to discuss it, and I wasn't able to get in touch with them in time. I did have a friendly amendment prepared, which hasn't come forward, which I'd be happier with. The point is, if you put it back through the scrutiny process and you wait for a meeting, you're pushing it further and further down the line, and we really haven't got that time. Different bodies from the MP, Lancashire County Council, the Facts Group, the Task Group, the Energy Working Group, we've all written to the different bodies, and we've had different responses at different times. And when you unravel those responses, you get to the truth. One thing that's come out is that when they did the holistic network design, they only looked at it for connecting one of the wind farms to Stanley, not both of them. They haven't done a full assessment. And now we've got a third wind farm, Morvannon, which by all accounts is going to go past Hillhouse, go past the site that can accommodate it. We're faced with a loss of open countryside needlessly. I mean, if we didn't have the alternative route, I'm on the planning committee, we have to make awkward decisions, and quite often you have to pass things that you don't want to. And if we didn't have the alternative route, I found it hard to come up with reasons to turn it down. Being objective and sitting on the planning committee, if I was making that decision, I'd probably have to say, yes, it'll have to go ahead because it's nationally significant infrastructure. The country needs it. But what we're faced with now is not one, not two, but three separate cable routes. Morgan and Morgan might be going in side by side, but there's going to be a time lag. 3 cable routes across the file and more than a decade of disruption that's needless. We need to get on with it now. I don't want it to go back to the scrutiny, through the scrutiny process. If we could set up a working group somehow to look at it now with officers to see what action can be taken now to go back to Ofgem. Now, we have written to the chairman of Ofgem. He's passed it on to someone else. We've had a meeting. The head of planning has rebutted more or less everything that was said in that letter from Ofgem. And we need to keep going back to Ofgem and go back to the chairman and point out all the mistakes that are being made. I mean, we're talking about £1.5 billion of waste. I mean, I hate any waste, but £1.5 million needlessly. So I'd like to hear the amendment again, but we really do need to not put it back to the scrutiny process, to set up a working group and to get on with it now and get the government, if Ofgem can intervene and get the government to look at it, then yes, let's get something done. You know, for once. I mean, this council's going to disappear. in all likelihood. And what's going to be the legacy? Yeah, decades of disruption with nothing to show for it. The electricity is going to come ashore just down the road. It's going to go underground cables to Penwitham and disappear to be used elsewhere. What are the ongoing benefits for Fyle? A maintenance job, someone cutting the grass, someone painting the outside. Any contractors will probably be from outside the area. Yes, we'll get the 106 monies perhaps, but beyond that, there's a chance here, a real opportunity to bring fresh businesses to Hill House. At the moment, Stanner substation is operating at or near capacity. There's businesses that want to go on Hill House. They have electricity requirements that can't be fulfilled. As soon as they realise that, they're going elsewhere. Now, if you had the electricity supply there, if you had Stanner 2 there, you'd be able to attract these businesses and keep them. And it's not just for Fleetwood or Thornton or Blackpool North, it's for the entire Fyle Coast, it's within commuting distance. And you're talking for real jobs going forward. Beyond that, there's big treks they want to produce hydrogen. It requires electricity. There isn't enough electricity there, it can't be supplied. They're talking about relocating. That's another 1,000 jobs disappearing.
Councillor Collins, could you wrap up, please? You've only allowed 5 minutes.
Yeah, but I've just made the point, we really do need, I mean, this isn't political, I'm not having a go at anyone from across the chamber, but we really do need to be doing something now. Not putting it back into the scrutiny process and kicking the ball further down the line and missing a golden opportunity. Thank you.
Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, I'm going to come across incredibly unintelligent here, but a very impassioned speech. But the notice of motion that I'm looking at, this is exactly at odds with what's just been said. Has the notice of motion been changed as what's in the agenda? Because the notice of motion suggests that we stop and we navel gaze and we look backwards. And I don't know what that has to do with anything that's just been mentioned. I'm more than happy for it to go to scrutiny and for scrutiny to have a look at it. And I think we should leave it for scrutiny to do that. That's fine. But all our officers should be looking forwards at the applications coming in before us and doing the best, not spending all the days looking backwards.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? If there's nothing else to say, we will take the vote on the amendment first. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? So that now becomes a substantive. Sorry?
Councillor Collins would like to speak.
Councillor Collins. What's he doing?
So the amendment's now the substantive motion.
So what are we voting for?
Anyone speak to that?
So
That hasn't already.
So ready to go.
Anybody that hasn't already spoken to substantive motion, that now speaks to it.
So I assume you're now speaking on the substantive motion.
Yeah, proposing an amendment.
Right, I'd like to propose an amendment that this council, in addition to the review proposed in the substantive motion, establishes without delay a small time-limited working group reporting to the Internal Affairs Scrutiny Committee, tasked with identifying and assessing immediate actions required to pursue a faster, smarter and more cost-effective alternative connection for the Morgan, Morecambe and Morvannon offshore wind farm schemes via the Stanner Hill House Energy Enterprise Zone route. The working group shall, number 1, examine the feasibility and benefits of connecting all 3 schemes. Morgan, Morecambe and Morvannon at Stanner, including the emerging Stanner 2 option referenced by Ofgem. Number 2, engage urgently with Ofgem, NESO, National Grid, developers and relevant local authorities to understand the immediate steps necessary to progress this alternative. Number 3, advise the council within weeks rather than months on urgent actions that Fylde should undertake to protect residents from unnecessary disruption and to prevent avoidable costs to consumers. And number 4, coordinate with officers, parishes, Wyre and Lancashire County Council, MPs and government to ensure a rapid joined-up response. The purpose of the working group shall be to ensure that Fylde is able to quickly, effectively and strategically in the closing window before local government reorganisation and to maximise the opportunity for all 3 wind farms to connect at Stanner in a way that minimises impact and secures the best outcome for the communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can you just explain, are you introducing another amendment?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. But do you have a seconder for that?
I'll second it. Speak.
Who would like to speak on the second amendment?
It has to be in writing. It has to give us in writing.
Is it possible to have a copy of that amendment? Because it was quite a long amendment. And if you have a copy either distributable or on the screen, it would be very useful. Thank you.
Councillor, we will need a written copy.
We've got one.
Can we get this on the screen?
I'll have to check, otherwise we'll have to copy it.
We'll have a 5 minutes.
Short German while we get copies.
Yeah,
Okay, we need to get a copy of that amendment, so and the only way we can do that is copy it, so there'll be a short adjournment for about 5 minutes. Read out again? In that case, we'll open the discussion on the second amendment. Councillor Trelford first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just a question I'm a bit confused about, the working group. We already have a working group. And all these avenues of different, why hasn't this been channelled into the working group that we have? And I'd like the question answered, please. And also to set this record straight, Victrex are not looking to move anywhere. I have an associate who works at quite high level in Victrex and assures us that that isn't the case. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the copy of the amendment. I'm just struck that this further layers what is being asked of the council. It says, in addition to the review proposed. So it's further layering on the work that is being asked of the council, which could further delay what we're all seeking to achieve. I think a member said that this is the original motion is looking backwards, navel gazing. And if you look at what is proposed there, looking at all stages, all actions, all responsibility, internal governance, oversight, structures, and it goes on and on and on. And this amendment is layering on top of that, as well as this, asking to set up a working group when we already have a working group. So I think we do need to cut through this to properly focus, which is what the Chair's panel can do in short order, and decide whether the working group already established, on which the original mover, proposer and seconder of the original motion sit. So it is rather odd that they're not using that working group already established to achieve these ends. So I can't support this amendment. It does nothing to streamline or focus what we need to do, and would urge that we vote that down and go back to the amendment I put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Redcliffe.
Thank you. I also cannot support this particular amendment. There are a number of reasons. I'd like to, first of all, take the opportunity to pay tribute to the existing operational consultative group, cross-party group. Councillor Collins and Councillor Gardner, who have spoken tonight very eloquently, are currently members of that group. So they will know as much as I do in terms of the commitment of those members and their dedication to a number of fairly intense meetings regarding the challenges that none of us underplay and undervalue. We realise that these projects could potentially have a devastating effect on the landscape and the lives of people in Fylde. The members of that already established consultative cross-party group have worked tirelessly in partnership with our officers, who have been equally adept and committed. And I want to mention Paul McKim and John Copestake and give them the credit that is due, actually, in terms of their achievements. And with the independent groups as well, working in Fylde, there has been, up to this point, a formidable partnership that has been formed in putting cogent, coherent arguments before the inspectors. That has been the role up to this point. However, I cannot see establishing a separate group when there is an obvious route through the existing group. And I'm slightly disappointed that rather than raising these specific proposals and ideas and suggestions, and I do actually respect the fact there is good intent behind this, that we all want the same thing, that we want this particular project not to happen. And we want to speak very powerfully in the interests of all citizens of Fylde. But we are where we are. And I think we're at a point where we have an existing body that can actually work with the advice of the Scrutiny Committee, who may take a view on how best to go forward here. But what we've achieved so far cannot be underestimated. That I know that, for example, myself have spent 2 days with the inspectorate visiting various sites on a 21-mile route across Fylde, seeing for ourselves the effect that this project would have. I want to pay tribute to the work that the independent groups have done in terms of particularly exploring alternative routes. And I don't want to say that this side of the House don't share many of the concerns, if not all of the concerns expressed tonight. We do. We seriously do. And I hope you understand that. But what I am saying is we do have a body that is existing, that is ready to look at some of these issues. And the partnership working with 2 very professional officers, one of whom has had previous experience of nationally significant infrastructure projects, has meant that Fylde, up until this point, has really put some very, very strong representations and arguments forward. I think that will at least be respected. Whether those arguments prevail will not be within our remit. That is for the Inspectorate and the Secretary of State to make those decisions. But I feel very confident that everything that could have been done up until this point, and I know we're looking ahead now, has been done. So thank you, but I can't support this particular amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gavin Harrison.
Thank you, Chairman. Picking up on what the previous speakers have said, I too can't support this amendment. I think Councillor Collins, in his initial statement early on, talked about a tsunami of needless trenches. Well, I've learned something there because I didn't know that was the collective noun for needless trenches. However, we don't want to get swept away with a tsunami of needless reviews, needless working groups, when we've got what we need already before us. Let those groups do the work that they're doing. Let's carry on as we are and let's fight it in that way. But I can't support that amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, like everybody here, I'm totally committed to the thrust of this argument, no matter how we do it. I'm just wondering whether we're coming at it from the wrong angle. I've seen quite a bit from our Member of Parliament about this, both on social media and also in the House of Commons where he's raised it. As previously in Lancashire County Council, I was on the Development Control Committee, and one of their specific remits is this sort of thing, a major project that's going on within Lancashire County Council. And I'm just wondering, and it's just a query really, are we coming at this from the bottom? Should we find out what the others have been doing first? Is the Member of Parliament being consulted? We mentioned Lancashire County Council in Councillor Collins' initial talk on this. And has the County Council been involved? I'm asking this because we're talking about coordinating it, which sounds like we're trying to push something to others that may already be doing it. So that is only my comments on this. I am completely committed to the gist of the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? Yeah, Councillor Collins, you're going to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The original motion...
we are going to sum up on this second amendment.
Yeah. Well, I'm speaking on the second amendment. Yeah. The original motion was for the process what we've been through to go to scrutiny for an in-depth review. Yeah. Now, that I talked to Lindsay Lacey. That's not going to happen until later on next year. So, but we still need that. We genuinely need that. I mentioned the Fylde Economic Strategy 2012 to 2030. I mean, I don't know if anybody's read that, but we're not meeting the aims of that strategy. Theme 11 in that states, the Council and its partners will work together to ensure that the economic opportunities created by government energy policy are maximised in Fylde. But we're not. That's not happening. The energy's coming ashore, it's disappearing to something else, and we're not benefiting. And utilise... Utilise the natural resources of the Fylde coast in a manner which maximises sustainable employment and encourages investment in key infrastructure. That's not happening either. The third point, ensure that all partner activities are well coordinated should any opportunities present themselves. Well, we've had this application and we've got another one now, and it hasn't been well coordinated. It does need to go to scrutiny. We do need an in-depth review as well as acting now. Now, whether we do that through the scrutiny process or through the energy working group, but the amendment sets out things that need to be looked at. So I support the amendment, and I hope that other members, colleagues will also support it. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak on this? This is the second amendment, the one you've got in front of you, before we go to the vote. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to speak on this amendment. Whilst I support this amendment in the long term, I do think it's something for the long term. I feel that, like many members who have spoken, we do have an existing working group that has been working extremely well from the time that I have been on it, and I can only know from previous. I urge this working group to focus on some of the detail in the discussions that we have and not miss this opportunity, because we do have an opportunity to maximise some more of the clear evidence that's come about us, and that working group has the timely opportunity to deal with that. So I'd like to put that forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we now come to the vote on the second amendment, i.e. the one that's been printed out for you. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. That amendment has been defeated. So that brings us back to the notice of motion as amended by the First Amendment on this side. Does anyone else want to speak on it? Do you want to say anything further, or shall we go straight to the vote?
Okay, can I just read out what that amendment was? What the substantive motion now is?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair. The substantive motion now reads that the Scrutiny Chairs Panel be asked to consider commissioning the Internal Affairs Scrutiny Committee to conduct an in-depth review of the Council's handling of the Morecambe and the Moor-Vannin NSIP wind farm applications to date, covering all relevant stages, actions and responsibilities, specifically examining the Council's internal governance, oversight and reporting structures in relation to NSIPs, the quality, timeliness and adequacy of information shared between the Economic Prosperity Board, officers, elected members and parish councils. The process is used to assess alternative route options and technical evidence, how decisions, recommendations and responses were formulated and authorised, the adequacy of consultation, engagement with residents, stakeholders and parish councils, and how any gaps, delays, inconsistencies, miscommunications or procedural failures may have affected the Council's ability to realise opportunities described in the Council's economic development strategy or best represent the interests of Fylde residents. That's what's the substantive motion at the moment.
Thank you. So can we now take a vote on the substantive motion? Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions?
So the motion's carried.
Thank you. The motion is carried. Can we move on now to agenda item 8, the Kirk and Pool Enabling Works, and I invite Councillor Karen Buckley to propose the item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Earlier this year, Council approved an addition to the capital programme of £150,000 fully funded from the Capital Investment Reserve to fund temporary holding, security, preservation and project enabling works required after the asset was transferred to Fylde Council. The contract is ready to be awarded to Warden Construction Limited, and so the recommendation is to approve the capital expenditure of £150,000 and award this contract. The necessary works are set out in the report and are to prevent further deterioration and devaluation of the facility, but also are to prepare it for reinstatement and reduce the risk of the capital costs continuing to escalate. The report on tonight's agenda also gives me the opportunity to update members on swimming provision in the borough, being mindful that we are also going through a change of contractor for St Anne's Pool. Members will know the procurement process deliberately included Kirkenpool so that bidders were invited to tender for operating both. I am working closely with our MP Andrew Snowden to explore all avenues of government funding, and I have written to Lancashire County Council with a request that they consider a financial contribution in their budget deliberations for 26-27, recognising their duty towards public health. Our finance team are modelling different options for investment, and we are nearing the time when we will be able to make a decision, and we must make a decision whilst we can still do so in the interests of Fylde. When I say that, I am of course referring to the spectre of local government reorganisation that brings with it government diktats on spending. We eagerly await the local government funding settlement, which will be announced near to Christmas. The government have announced the abolition of the new homes bonus, their intention to reset the baseline for business rates retention, and to introduce a fair funding review which redistributes funds towards areas of deprivation. All of these measures feature strongly in Fylde's financial strategy and so are pivotal to our decision-making on these very important projects. I move the recommendations, Mr Mayor, on page 8.
Thank you, Councillor. And do you have a seconder? Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to second this motion. It needs to get going as soon as possible. It's important that we preserve the baths as best we can so we can move forward. And hopefully, with a lot of prayers and hope, and the money will be in place to fund. But that's out of our hands at the moment. Okay, thank you. I reserve the right to speak.
Does anybody want to speak on this item? Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I just ask for some clarification? We're putting it out to tender that we would like any applicant to take on both St Anne's and Kirkham baths. And is it the case that the successful applicant would have to take on both, or is the option for them that they would be able to just take St Anne's and drop off Kirkham baths at a later stage?
Anybody else want to speak on this item? Do you want to come back?
Yes, I'm happy to, Mr Mayor. Just to clarify that bids have come in for operating both St Anne's and Kirkham or either, and then it will be up to this council to make a decision on how to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're now ready to take a vote on that. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Yeah. Thank you. Agenda item 9, adjustment to committee allocations. I invite Councillor Vince Settle to propose this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This change has been requested by Councillor Peter Collins on behalf of the Independent Group and affects the Standards Committee. Councillor Paul Hayhurst will step down and be replaced by Councillor Damien Buckley. I propose acceptance of this change, and I have a seconder in Councillor Peter Collins. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Collins. Peter Collins.
Mr Mayor, I second the change. Thank you.
Does anybody want to speak on this issue? We'll go straight to the vote then. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Agenda item 10, proposed fees and charges for 26-27 as on page 17. I invite Councillor Vince Settle to propose the item.
Thank you again, Mr Mayor. Each year, the fees and charges for the upcoming year are assessed by budget holders and lead members, which must then be approved at Council. Their proposals are contained in the report. I propose we accept these recommendations, and I have a seconder in Councillor Morris. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to second this item and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Are you going to the vote or do you want to speak?
No, everyone's got one.
Okay, have we got that?
Yeah.
All those in favour of this motion? I thought I said that. I think that is clearly carried.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We meet tonight to consider the business case for 3 unitary authorities in Lancashire. Let me begin by restating our position. Fylde Council does not support local government reorganisation, nor do our residents. The two-tier system, whilst imperfect, remains the best way to deliver services close to communities. But the government has made it clear that they intend to impose change, and in that context, we must ensure that if reorganisation proceeds, Fylde's interests are protected. That is why we have worked with partners to put forward the case for 3 unitaries. It is not our preferred path, but it is the least damaging option available. The government's criteria is that a proposal should be a single tier of government, i.e. a unitary council, a scale and size that is efficient and resilient, and they suggest a population figure of 500,000. It should deliver quality and sustainable services, work jointly with local support, be large enough and capable enough to support devolution, and support strong community engagement. Of the 5 options under consideration in Lancashire, the 3 unitary model best fits the criteria. So what would that look like? A coastal Lancashire, uniting Blackpool, Fylde, Wyre and Lancaster around our shared visitor economy, energy industries and coastal communities. A central Lancashire, bringing together Preston, Chorley, South Ribble and West Lancashire as the county's hub which already shares economic, housing and transport links. And a Pennine Lancashire, combining Blackburn with Darwen, Burnley, Hyndburn, Pendle, Ribble Valley and Rossendale, recognisable as an entity and rooted in resilience, industry and identity. This structure is not arbitrary. It is designed to best align local government boundaries with the NHS, police and fire services and enables joined-up commissioning and integrated care. It is designed to invest in prevention and early intervention, reducing demand on crisis services and improving outcomes for residents. And it is designed to plan growth across real economic geographies, from the M65 manufacturing corridor to the coastal energy economy, unlocking investment and jobs. So why not the other models? So for the 2 unitary model, this would split Lancashire into a north and south, roughly along the line of the M65, with huge populations of around 720,000 in the north and 880,000 in the south. These mega councils will be remote and unresponsive. Our identity would be lost in a vast coastal to urban conglomerate with decision-making far from our communities. For the 4 unitaries, while smaller than the 2, this model still creates uneven groupings, with East Lancashire being disproportionately larger and other areas too small to be financially resilient. The boundaries proposed under 4 do not align well with NHS police or economic geographies, undermining the case for integration and growth. On the alternative 4, put forward only by Blackpool, filed risks being grouped in ways that dilute our coastal identity and weaken our voice, being drowned out between Blackpool and Preston. And of the 5 unitary option, this model fragments Lancashire too far, creating authorities that are too small to deliver major services effectively. It is politically driven by Burnley and Pendle, who do not want to be grouped with Blackburn. By contrast, the 3 unitary model balances scale with identity. It creates authorities large enough to be financially resilient and credible partners for government, but small enough to retain local character and responsiveness. It aligns with real economic and service geographies, coastal, central and Pennine, and offers the best chance of protecting Fyld's interests if change is forced upon us. Members, supporting this business case tonight is not an endorsement of reorganisation. It is a pragmatic defence of Fyld's residents. We are saying clearly, if government insists on change, this is the model that does least harm, preserves identity and offers the best chance of effective services. Turning to the recommendations, firstly, we renew our opposition to this government's top-down diktat. Secondly, we note the public supports us in this stance. And thirdly, should this project go ahead, we put forward the 3 unitary business model as the best fit for the criteria set by the government. Mr Mayor, I move the recommendations and I have a seconder in Councillor Redcliffe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Redcliffe.
Yes, I'm happy to second this motion and would like to make a few comments, please. First of all, to reinforce one essential point is that we are in a position where to act responsibly in the interest of our citizens, we have no choice but to take very seriously these particular options that are before us. And certainly the option that we feel as a unitary authority that we would prefer in terms of the interests of our citizens would be the 3 unitary authority. And that would mean Pennine, Central Lancashire and Coastal Lancashire. I just want to mention a few reasons behind that thinking. First of all, the guidelines from the government talk about a threshold of around 500,000 people, and that's relating to the argument to do with efficiencies of scale. What is proposed here in terms of the Coastal Lancashire one, they're quite well aligned with 3 police districts and the National Health Service teaching hospital footprints. It also utilises existing council boundaries. The scale that is being proposed should be effective in terms of delivering services. It also recognises economic geography patterns, probably with least disruption in particular with this particular option. There are a number of reasons why it's a strong bid for an option that we don't think is in the best interests of Fylde citizens. We feel very strongly that if you're acting in the interest of Fylde citizens, you would retain Fylde Council because it delivers for its citizens. And in a local survey, 63% agreed with that view and wanted to retain the existing council. But I'm happy to second this. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Councillor Hayworth.
I don't normally need it. Sorry, yeah. It obviously be able to pay for better staff, and which is one of the problems Blackpool's got at the moment, because its education side of things is really appalling because of the fact that it's a very small unitary authority. It would also be a case of we would be able to offset Preston against Blackpool. At the moment, Blackpool has debts of 600 million, and they are increasing on a daily basis. The inhabitants of Blackpool all owe £10,000 in debt, and that is what we are going to be putting on our people here in Fylde. We're also going to lose two quintessential English resorts, St Anne's and Lytham. If you ever look at the old photographs of Bispham and what Bispham was like before Blackpool grabbed it, you'll see that it was an idyllic little village. Now what it is slot machines and hotels, or derelict hotels in many cases. So the fact is, but the other thing is, I don't think people really know about Blackpool. Blackpool shows its logo is progress. But really, and that was that in the case of the Bickerstaffs and the Cockers that built Blackpool years ago. But now it's recession in double ways. And again, just a little bit of a history lesson. Back in the early 2000s, I was leader of this authority, and we had McAlpines came to us who wanted to build a 42,000-seater stadium at Windyke. And I laughed at the time because it was certainly not going to, Blackpool Football Club was never going to fill it. But I was told, well, it's only going to be 7% football. The rest of it is going to be an event stadium. Blackpool opposed it and said that it was, because it wasn't in Blackpool, it got Government North West to turn it down. So McAlpines then came back with a snow dome, which they wanted to build adjacent to the M55 on the land that they owned. And they said there's only one snow dome can be built in the northwest. Blackpool, again, opposed it, and what happened? It went to Trafford. And so we're in a situation where Blackpool used to be forward-thinking, it is now backward-thinking, and recession is the new name for Blackpool. We cannot impose this on the people at Fylde. People in Fylde are going to see their places where they live transformed overnight, and they are going to incur a huge debt. Mr. Mayor, we should be going for the north and south option for a number of reasons. But anyway, I understand that the ruling group are going to vote for a Greater Blackpool. I'd like to see what happens at election time when we tell them that the Conservatives have gone for a Greater Blackpool.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand the sentiments there from Councillor Hayhurst. However, bigger is not always better. And yes, Blackpool has a £650 million debt pile. It also has £1.1 billion worth of assets. Preston, on the other hand, has £200 million worth of debt and round about £200 million worth of assets. It's virtually bankrupt already. Putting the two together would be an absolute disaster for us. And I think hedging our bets this way in a coastal authority with Lancaster, with Blackpool, with us, will give us a better say on where the money goes when it comes into that authority. Thanks.
Anybody else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Harrison.
Chairman, I've got to take issue with what Councillor Hayhurst said. We're certainly not voting for a Greater Blackpool. 2/3 of the proposal, as is quite clear, is that we don't want this under any circumstances. However, if it's forced on us by a Labour government, this is the least worst option. And for the reasons Councillor Dixon said, it's a much less worse option, if you pardon the tortured English, than merging with Blackpool and Preston. With the four authorities that we're talking about, there's much more balance than there would be with the two larger towns, cities of Preston and Blackpool. On that basis, I will reluctantly support the three option that the motion suggests. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? In that case, we will go to the vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Buckley, would you like to sum up?
I would just say one thing to make it very clear. As members of this chamber know, and as the public know, that this is not us voting for reorganisation. This is the Labour government's plan, and to say otherwise is disingenuous. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Well, the option has been described to you. Can we now go to the vote? All those in favour? Those against?
Mr Mayor, could I have my vote recorded, please?
You need 5 voters for that.
No, that's for a fully recorded vote. Just for his record is fine.
Yes, okay, we can apparently do that.
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions? 2. Okay, thank you. That takes us on to item 12, medium-term financial strategy. I invite Councillor Vince Settle to propose this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is the latest update of our MTFS, and I'm pleased to say is showing a better position than the previous update, mainly due to a recent triannual review of the employer's contributions into the Lancashire Local Government Pension Scheme. This has shown that it is currently funded at a level of 134%, and that there is therefore capacity to reduce our contributions from 15.2% to 9.7%, thereby giving a reduction of 440,000 in our annual contributions. Our resource budget is therefore now showing a much reduced deficit next year and beyond. However, and there's always some not so good news, we still await the government's fair funding review due in December, and it's unlikely to be generous, with its already announced emphasis on areas of high deprivation, i.e. the same as last year. There are changes we are aware of though, such as for example the closing down of the New Homes bonus and the closing down of the business rates pooling scheme, and all these are now built into the forward estimates. As always, can I thank Paul and his team for producing the MTFS and managing to keep track of the myriad of changes that government keeps making to us. I propose acceptance of the recommendations, and I have a seconder in Councillor Withers. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Withers.
Yes, I'm happy to support the motion, Mr Mayor.
Would anybody like to speak on this item? Okay, you can go straight to the vote. Can't we? In that case, I think we can go straight to the vote. All those in favour?
Unanimous.
All those against? Any abstentions? Aye. So that item has been carried. Agenda item 13, council tax premiums. I invite Councillor Vince Settle to propose this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item covers council tax premiums for empty properties and is designed to encourage owners to bring them back into use. The government have recently strengthened the 100% premium arrangement so that councils can charge this after 1 year rather than 2 years. We are proposing to introduce this as from April 2026, and our latest estimate is that 239 properties will be affected. There are, as before, various exemptions, such as properties awaiting probate and those undergoing renovation. I propose acceptance of the recommendations, and I have a seconder in Councillor Anthony. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Anthony.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to second this.
Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Councillor Withers.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I oppose this on a number of issues. It's logical. Owners of empty properties, by definition, do not use the services for which council tax is charged. What business in the land would get away with charging someone who does not use its service double what it does for someone who does? The three highest priorities of this hapless government are tax, tax and tax again. We hear that tomorrow the Chancellor will impose a council tax surcharge on houses in bands F, G and H. This proposal adds insult to injury. Tax should not be used to manipulate people's behaviour. The only honest purpose of tax is to pay for services which can best be provided by government. It's obvious that people will spend their own money more carefully and efficiently than will a body which simply expropriates money on pain of imprisonment and goes on to squander billions on projects such as hotels for asylum seekers. Its impact on the housing market is unpredictable, but it won't improve it, and it's highly unlikely to achieve its aim of reducing empty properties. Also, it's estimated to raise a paltry £54,000 per annum, a rounding error in our accounts. Further, this is the thin end of the wedge. How long will it be before it's extended to second homes? And finally, it's fundamentally unconservative and, more to the point, it's morally indefensible. I will not support it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gaunt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must concede that as an accountant, I do think about tax more than the maybe most people. Read lots of articles in the press, and there have been several articles about council tax premiums in the press recently. In fact, there was one in the Telegraph, I think, a couple of days ago. I've always been consistent in my concerns around the legislation for this premium. So I'm in favour of keeping the premium kicking in at 2 years for a vacant property rather than reducing it to 1 year. My main problem has always been that the grace period doesn't extend for a change in ownership of a property. So my concern is that you will have buyers who bear the risk of buying an empty property, bear the costs of renovating an empty property, and pay a lot of stamp duty to buy the property as well. And they will then get caught out by a property that will levy a double council tax before they've had chance to renovate it, bring it up to standard and move in. So I don't think the system has the safeguards in it that I would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else wish to speak on that? Councillor Red.
Whilst I respect Councillor Riller's reservations regarding these particular schemes, I have to say that one of the reasons that I support these particular measures is that I know, I haven't got the statistics in front of me, but I know that in this country it's almost a crime that we have so many empty properties not providing a home or a base for people who live in the UK. And I think that this particular scheme, if it means that more properties are actually used as residences, then that's a massive bonus. We hear a lot about housing targets. We hear a lot about the need for new homes. And yet, part of the solution, only part of the solution, is staring us in the face when we look at the thousands of empty properties that exist in our local area and elsewhere. So if we can get those properties used for what they were designed for, people living in them, I think that is a huge benefit. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Jordan. Ledger, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate this is a very complex issue for a number of people, but I am grateful that some actions can be taken to reduce the amount of vacant homes that I guess the language, we refer to it as property and assets and businesses, but for many people these are homes, and for many people my age and under, the reason that house prices, one of the main reasons that house prices are have grown exponentially much faster than wages is because they are treated as assets, and many business advisors, and this might be, from my experience of time living in London, where I see this more acutely than here, but many people are advised financially to buy a second home rent it out, not rent it out, watch it accrue value for literally doing nothing but sitting there. And it is ordinary people, hardworking people who suffer because they cannot afford to buy a house. They can't even afford sometimes the rent. I mean, the attitude of treating a home as an asset just to accrue value while it could be sitting vacant, and just the notion that that's good business. I know it probably, you know, I'm Labour, so it's going to upset me more than it upsets other people who have a different view on business, but I respect that. But I do think this is a partially sensible proposal to do something, even for this council. So, you know, I was grateful for Councillor Redcliffe's contribution there, and I would support this. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item?
Does Vince want to sum up? Does Vince want to sum up?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Vince, Councillor Settle, would you like to sum up?
Thank you for that, Mr Mayor. I recognise the dilemma for Conservatives in this motion, but we believe that there is an overall pressing need to get these empty homes back into use. I've mentioned various situations where they can be exempted. I forgot to mention that we do have discretionary powers to give an exemption in unique cases. Councillor Gaunt has mentioned one I wasn't aware of. So maybe, I don't know, maybe we could look at that. But as I said, the overriding concern for the government is that these empty houses could be used. And there's an environmental impact as well, in that as they become emptier for more and more longer periods, it becomes a blight on the landscape. People living in those streets don't like it. Overgrown gardens, etc. It's just a blight on their houses. So, you know, the faster we can get these into use, the better. As I say, it does mention that there are cases where a house is being renovated, etc., and the landlord or the owner is fully aware of that. You know, they do have a period of time to rectify it and get it back into use. So, in balance, the overall situation is that we should do everything we can to get these empty homes back into use. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Settle. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. We'll now move on to item 14, and the Chief Executive will introduce it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not introducing the item. I am offering an apology to the Chamber. We've checked the general dispensation and it expired, unfortunately. So those members who had a landlord-based interest, I offer apologies for that. The Mayor wasn't aware. We've done a double check. There was a general dispensation, but it expired. So you will have to declare an interest and leave the room.
So we can move on now.
Well, let them leave first. Let these two leave first.
Oh, I see. Oh. Okay, agenda item 14, Council Tax Reduction Scheme. Can Councillor Vince Settle propose this item?
Thank you again, Mr Mayor. Last time, I promise. This item comes up for renewal each year, and we are proposing to stay with the current maximum discount of 22.7%. However, with more claimants each month moving on to the new universal credit arrangements, the effect on this scheme has been to increase the administration of it and to cause unnecessary stress and confusion for the claimants. This is because the system adjusts their entitlements even if their income is plus or minus £1 each month. This means constant adjustments, for example, for those on 0 hours contracts or even doing an hour's overtime. Each adjustment means they have to change their direct debit or other method, or, in some cases, they simply cancel it in confusion and then get into arrears. Blackpool and other councils have successfully introduced some flexibility, giving a tolerance level of plus or minus £65 in income before any change is made. Experience shows that this has a negligible effect on costs to the councils. I propose that we accept this change, and I have a seconder in Councillor Dixon. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm pleased to second this, and I am really pleased to see the bringing in of that £65 a month wriggle room. One, because it will help reduce the amount of time our officers have to spend on redoing council tax bills, and two, it helps people who are claimants when the boss asks them to stay for an extra hour 1 week or to do an extra shift once a month, and perhaps for that shift to drop off the next month, it makes life a lot easier for them. So, yeah, fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Does anyone wish to speak on this item? If nobody wishes to speak, we will go straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Ask for the two to come back in.
Sorry?
She's just got to get the two to come back in.
You're lucky you reminded me. Forgotten. Item 15, Mid-Year Prudential Indicators and Treasury Management Monitoring Report. I invite Councillor Mike Withers to propose this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to propose this motion and have a seconder in Councillor Redfern.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm very happy to second this item.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak on this item? We will then take the vote. All those in favour?
Unanimous.
That's unanimous. And that means that we now reach the end of our meeting. Thank you very much for your time and good night.
Wish you luck for Christmas.